Hey, what's up, everybody? It's your boy Tenzin, one third of the SOS podcast, and may the Sith be with you. That's right, folks. We are in the dark side, but don't worry, we're not evil. I promise. Anyway, we have the Humanist Fan representing. We're gonna be talking Star Wars. Yeah, Star Wars is, as what many people know, is you know s- a, a franchise that started like what would you would know like the late 70s.
Yeah, it's been around for a minute, well before we were both born, for sure.
Yeah, way before we was a twinkle in our father's eyes, and now it went from
70s.
oh, what the hell is this, to this massive thing. And to help talk about Star Wars and all its glory is the Humanist Fan. Humanist Fan, go on and introduce yourself to everybody.
Thank you so much. Joy to the galaxy, repping my Baby Yoda or Grogu shirt. For all of you that are true fans and know the full lore. Yes, I am the Humans fan. Make humans great again. Check in some slogans that can be a little iffy to some of the things that could be what it should be for. Like, as I said, great again, because we can definitely be again great and even better. As an introduction, well, a little background. While keeping some mystery, I work in IT. And true to the area, I am a nerd. You can tell. I identify as a nerd who loves Star Wars, and that's why I'm here. Grew up on the original trilogy. Just looked up 1977 is when it launched the first episode of the original trilogy, episode 4, and then we all know until we get up to the current honestly lore, which has evolved a lot. And that's a whole conversation in itself. But yeah, I pretty much watched all the visual content. Followed Lucasfilms all the way to when Disney acquired it and took over, and all the things it's done since then. But also, I've read a bit of the books. There's novels as well as comic books. So I have a little bit of the background of the expanded universe, or EU. That currently is known as Legends, Star Wars Legends. Which is, of course, has been unfortunately dropped from canon because some of it I do like, but we can talk about that when it comes up. But yeah, that's my background, and so I have a lot to say on the subject.
So so Humanist Fan, like, I guess, like, what was your first experience with Star Wars?
Well, I would imagine it's like most. It's going to see Episode 4, A New Hope. I was indoctrinated. I gotta say, when I was young, it came out in 1977, so a few years before I was old enough to like watch it and enjoy it. But it was one of the first movies I think that I saw all that maybe like blow my mind. As prior to that, it was like what Saturday, Friday, Saturday cartoons. Maybe some other shows, some TV shows, and everything. Mostly focusing on slice of life, things that go on, our world, but in the real world. But Star Wars was a whole new area. It was like the fantasy. It was space and science, and similar to Star Trek, exploring the final frontier and where things could go into the potential future. So yeah, it was a pretty cool experience of opening my mind to that possibility.
That's, I have to say, that's pretty awesome. I mean, now it's crazy. Like, you actually started with A New Hope. I think now I always knew, like, I was aware of Star Wars growing up, but I think the first like full length Star Wars movie I watched was The Phantom Menace.
Mm-hmm.
That was my first time ever watching a Star Wars film, and I remember like, now it's cool, but I don't know, for some reason, when I was a kid, I remember, I forget the Queen character's name, but like
Oh,
the way she
Amidala.
did, yeah, the way she did her lipstick used to just kind of like weird me out. Like, full lipstick, top lip, and just a dot on the little. I was like,
Yeah.
cause I remember cause I think my babysitter took me to see it. I think, and I remember like eating KFC afterwards, and I'm looking at that picture, and I'm like eating the chicken. I'm just like, it's fucking weird. It's like, but but like I said, I always knew what it was because I would see it get parodied in different shows. Obviously, you'll hear a lot of references to it, and if you grew up being took to arcades like I have, there was this Star Wars game, right? Everyone knows that Star Wars game is in the arcade.
Mm-hmm.
You have like these levels. It's like you get the little joystick. You got to shoot the droids, every now and then there'll be like this boss battle where, you know, oh, there's B right there. It's like I wish I knew what it was actually called, but I think I'm talking about Humanist Fan. Um, like like that one boss battle with like either
Which
not
episode?
Django, but what's the other Fett, the original Fett, Boba
Boba
Fett.
Fett.
Yeah, it's either a boss fight with Boba Fett or it's a boss fight with Darth Vader, and like I remember
Mm-hmm.
it'll have like the red arrows for defense. You got to like push the joystick that way to block, and
Mm-hmm.
the green arrow to attack. You push it that way to attack, which I always lost the boss battles. I think I actually watched somebody beat Boba Fett before. I was like, whoa. So anyway, we got B joining us
What's up?
here.
What's up, SOS family? My bad. I was having some difficulties on my end, but it is what it is. We out here. Hey, thank you, Humanist Fan, for joining us. What's up, sir?
Thank you. It's
Uh,
great to be here.
hey, you know what it is on this beautiful Wednesday night.
Yes,
What's up,
sir.
everybody?
So B, just to continue, what was your first experience with Star Wars?
Oh, let's see. Um, I think it was probably I had what was it? I had Phantom Menace on VHS back in the day. So
Ooh,
I
did
would
you say
just
VHS?
yeah,
Mm-hmm.
so I was just
Real
running
founder.
that joint back. And then actually no, hold up, I'm tripping. We had Phantom Menace and the original trilogy. Matter of fact, because
Mm-hmm.
I got them upstairs in my room, I got the original
Same.
trilogy on the box VHS set too. So yeah, we was just running them joints back. I remember they used to play Attack of the Clones on TV all the time, bro. They used to play, I think TNT stay playing Attack of the Clones, and then I remember going to the movie theaters as a little kid watching Revenge of the Sith, man. So that joint was fire. I grew up watching the original Clone Wars, the good one. You know what I'm saying? All right, the 2D Samurai Jack animation, Clone Wars. You know what I'm saying?
Yep,
I
that
grew up
one.
watching them, boy. Man, I used to be so hype off of them. Let's see. Then I watched the 3D Clone Wars. Actually, no, wait, so that's that. I watched the refurbished Phantom Menace in the theaters when he did the updated version and stuff. Watched the Clone Wars movie in theaters back in '08 as a kid. Watched a decent amount of the Clone Wars show, but I remember like at one point it had like kind of stopped, or like nah, they had transitioned it to like Adult Swim at one point, and I was like, "Hey, what?" Like it was kind of all over the place, you know. And then of course, I went to opening weekend for all the sequels. You know what I'm saying? Like went to opening weekend all the sequels. I seen just about I I haven't seen all the animated Star Wars shows. I'm gonna be honest. I
Mm-hmm.
wasn't a huge fan of the 3D Clone Wars growing up. Like it was
Mm.
cool, it was stuff to watch, but I was never a huge fan of it. But you got to remember too, at the time, originally the 3D Clone Wars wasn't canon officially until they was like beep bop boop, Legends is gone,
Mm-hmm.
now
Mm-hmm.
Clone Wars is canon. So when I was a kid, it wasn't required viewing at that point. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So it was just something to watch. Kind of boom, buzz, whatever. So like when it became required viewing, I'm like, I feel stupid because I'm like I wasn't watching it. But I kind of caught the gist. Every once in a while, I make an attempt to go watch it again, but like
Mm-hmm.
I feel it. I get transported back to being like 12 and 13
Mm-hmm.
and not wanting to watch it. So, and I'll be like, my attention span is not good for shows like that. You know what I'm saying? But yeah, I've seen just about all the live action. No, hold up, scratch that. I never finished Andor. I haven't finished Andor. I know I'm tripping, but I haven't finished Andor. Seen all the rest of the stuff though. But yeah, I haven't read any of the comics or nothing like that, or the
Okay.
books or novels or nothing. Actually, I remember when I was a kid, the 501st book was in the store one time, and I skimmed it while I was in the store, but like I didn't buy it. I was young. I was not finna read that whole book. Like that wasn't.
Oh yeah, for sure.
But also speaking of Star Wars stuff, when I was a little kid, I had the Jar Jar dancing. He would dance and do the Jar Jar boogie or whatever. I had that joint. Like I had it in the plastic too, boy. If I'd have saved that joint, if my mom did, it's one of them things you be mad at your parents for. If my mom wouldn't have thrown that Jar Jar Binks toy away.
Heirloom right there for sure.
Boy, oh man, I could have been cleaning up some cash right now. You know what I mean? Yeah. That's one of the boys you be telling your parents, look, don't throw the video games away. I can make money off that.
Right. And it's not just with that. It's all like Pokemon. Like it's crazy what Pokemon cards are worth now. It's amazing.
I was cleaning up a bunch of stuff in the house last summer, and I found all my old Yu-Gi-Oh cards, all my old Bakugan. Like I bet you, if I cared to get them appraised, I could probably get something off of them. Like all that old stuff, man. But yeah, no, Star Wars been in my life. I mean, my whole life. You know what I'm saying? Like, so it's like, it's definitely like I'm, one of the things why Star Wars is one of my favorite franchises, just like, longevity. You know what I'm saying? It's still out here. And for real, it's one of them franchises I'm at this point where it's like, I don't think it's going nowhere though. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's not really going nowhere. Like I have confidence that my kids will be growing up watching Star Wars stuff. You know what I'm saying? It's like, so that's why like I'll always give the hats off to George Lucas, Lucasfilm, all them people in charge. It's just like, because that takes talent for real. Like to keep a franchise running that long, you know what I'm saying? Like there's not really many franchises who've actually done it. I guess technically you can kind of say Star Trek, but for real, your mainstream person ain't really gonna know Star Trek like that. At best, for a mainstream person, they'll give you one of these. You know what I'm saying? But if you ask them what that means, they ain't really gonna know. Yeah, like like they ain't really gonna know what that is. Like, but you ask a regular person what a lightsaber is, they could probably tell you. You know what I'm saying? Like, even if they've never watched Star Wars a day in their life.
But I want to interject on this real quick, and I'm sorry because I don't know if you got prompts or anything, but I share your enthusiasm and confidence for Star Wars, and I definitely want my kids to like grow up and with the opportunity to fall in love because I know they will as well. They ain't like the data. But you name drop George Lucas, Lucasfilms, which I agree, but they are not the ones that are in charge and handling the franchise anymore. Disney has them now. So I guess my question is, do you have confidence in the current managers of the Star Wars franchise and where we'll be in the future?
Oh, best belief. Yeah, 100%. I was never one of them people who switched up on the people running stuff. Half the people who were in charge were people George Lucas picked. Like he picked Kathleen Kennedy, he picked Dave Filoni. I mean, I don't know if he picked Jon Favreau, but I never got the vibe that he didn't like Jon Favreau. I think like he even got he's cool with Jon Favreau and stuff. Nah, I've never been even like I've told like my brother this, I like most of the stuff with Star Wars, even with stuff that I felt has dipped. It's never been to the point where I'm like, oh, I'm done. I've never thrown up my hands with this franchise or not like that. Truth be told, too, like, I know people got hate for Disney and stuff, but, like, if you really, really look at the numbers, like, and obviously it's Disney, so they're going to make some money, but, like, I feel most of the main profitability with this franchise has been under Disney. Granted, it's Disney. They got to make money, but, like, I mean, it's like, yeah, no, I don't have any doubt that Star Wars is going anywhere. Like, it's not like, well, because even when you think about the years when there was no Star Wars, like, content between, like, say, like, episode 6 and between episode 1, where there was, like, the only Star Wars content that existed was, like, comics and books and stuff. Even that didn't kill the franchise. You know what I'm saying? Granted, it may not have been its most profitable years, but the franchise never went nowhere. You know what I'm saying? It was still around, you know. And then episode 1 came out, and boom, they making billions of dollars again. You know what I'm saying? So, yeah, it's not going nowhere. It's here to stay. Also, too, like, you know, I'm not around a whole lot of younger kids anymore, but like the few kids I am around, even they still like rock with Star Wars and stuff like that. Like, you know, and that, I think, to me, that's the whole point when it comes to newer content and stuff like that. We got to be rocking for the kids to find their own way. You know what I'm saying? Like, you know, and I'm glad that the kids can have newer characters and stuff to latch on to. Like, I remember, like, I seen this little girl dressed up as like Rey. You know what I'm saying? I'm like, oh, that's dope. You know what I'm saying? Like, I like stuff like that. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's dope. And, you know, that's why I'm always pushing for like new characters and like new trilogies and stuff like that. Because like everybody got to find their way. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah.
You know, like that was like for me growing up. Like I remember when I would talk about like, oh, I love like the prequels characters and stuff more than the original trilogy characters, and you'd have like older people ear hustling on some stuff like, oh, you're tripping, like they're whack, like, you know, you gotta respect the originals. I'm like, yeah, the originals is cool, but like they was made 30, 40 years before I was born. Like, you know, I don't like,
You know,
like
I do want to comment on that because you know, a Humanist Fan, you actually like your first movie was actually New Hope, like, and the first movie I watched was Phantom Menace. So y'all gonna beat me up for this. So
say your truth.
So like when I finally watched, you know, one of the originals, yeah, like as B pointed out, like there was like this generation gap because I'm like, this nigga's I can tell that's a puppet. What the fuck? Like, you know, and then like, you know, like seeing somebody get lightsabered on, you know, the prequels and today, you know, yeah, they just fall over. Whereas back then it's like, oh, they just turn into clothes. That's stupid. You know, like so Humanist Fan, like, so you actually had, so like at least in your personal experience, like you actually did, you know, like I said, I still respect the originals obviously because the storytelling was still good. But yeah, like, so like what was that like for you, Humanist Fan, like being able to see like, you know, a newer version of Star Wars, like with, you know, better technology and stuff?
Yeah, so that's fair to point out the fact that it is dated. That technology has changed a lot with the advent of the Avatar series, which I think is agreed that is like has pushed the envelope of what cinematography and filmmaking can be. And now seeing that Star Wars keep up and getting us to the next level of what you know, cinematography and our technology can do and push into our visualization, which is amazing. It's come a long way. And so, yes, back in the day, the puppets, that is definitely dated. Some of the kids now are like, puppets, why? They didn't grow up on Sesame Street. They don't know about puppetry and stuff. And so I get it. But maybe this is where I'm jaded and I'm dated a little bit. My gray hair is showing. I did grow up on Sesame Street. I grew up with puppets. So I'm cool with it. I don't mind Yoda being a little stiff puppet and having a voice actor behind him, like mouthing and recording it separately. I don't mind that. But I get that if you're, you know, you're younger, you're used to streaming, you don't know what commercials are. I mentioned earlier, like the Friday Saturday cartoon, waiting and stuff, building up anticipation. That's not your life. I get it. So for that part of it, I agree. I don't think we should make movies identical to how it was made in the trilogy, original trilogy. But episode 4 through 6, I guess this is where I love what you're saying, Most Dope. I agree with a lot of it, but this is where I guess I'll make it official that I disagree a bit on some of the direction. I do like world building. And I do like continuity. And the cinematography can change, characters can change, the story's going to progress. But what I don't like is retconning. I don't like changing up what worked. And so I don't like seeing sequels that divulge significantly from the established world of Star Wars, essentially. Or even worse, not even sequels, prequels. If I see prequels to the sequel that basically are incongruent, like if this occurs here, how come we didn't see this in the trilogy? That kind of blows my mind a bit. I feel like it makes it more clear to me. And I hate to say it like this because it's like, so how do I used to word this as suspension of disbelief. A movie, especially a story, has the burden of giving the audience the ability to suspend disbelief, especially for science fiction, for fantasy, for things that are not real and potentially may not even be possible by laws of physics. So what they need to do is have a world continuity and logical system that is not changed, that does not make it very difficult for me to like, wait, how is that possible if this happened? Or if this happened, how is that possible? And then, whoa, what is this? I would never expect this. So in short, that's
Humanist,
where
do you have any
an issue. Mm-hmm.
So like, is there an example that you have in mind at the moment?
Yeah. So I guess in the sequel trilogy, they had the whole forced dyad thing between Rey and Kylo Ren. And they were basically, there's a lot to it, but the one thing that comes to mind that I really get frustrated by is the fact that it allows them to transmute like actual matter. Like if Rey's holding something like a jewelry, Kyle can just grab it and then it appears on the other side of the galaxy. Like not even miles away, like millions and millions of miles, light years away. And yet, that's number one, that's possible. But also when you scale that to Luke Skywalker dying from just creating a hologram of himself, basically a force ghost, essentially is how I view it, on a planet. He dies from that, where you can transport actual matter across the galaxy. So okay, that's two things. Let me ignore that for the side. What I really have an issue with is that there's nothing about the Force from how we've established it in episode 1 through 6, including 1 through 3. I love 1 through 3, by the way, Tenzin. But there's nothing that says you can actually teleport. You can transmute any matter. That's not how the Force works. So now they made it and embedded it in episode, I think, 8 and 9.
Yeah,
that's my biggest
issue. My only issue with that though, bro. Let's be 100% for real. There are no rules to the Force. George Lucas purposely made it so that there was no constrictions to the Force. If we got to be mad at anybody, be mad at George Lucas. You know what I'm saying? Because for real, he should have set ground rules to the Force, and he never did. And everybody had asked him for decades to set the ground rules, and he said, "I'm not doing it." Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, you know.
Well, hold on.
And I get you. And then even with the dyad thing,
vague. Like
I'm essentially, yeah. I mean, okay. Like, you know, I mean, especially when you factor in a lot of the old legend stuff. And when I say old legends, I'm talking about like legend stuff. Legends is essentially everything before Disney canon, essentially. Mm-hmm. When you factor in, right? Everybody, when they talk about legends, they usually talk about the early 2000s stuff. I'm like, nah, bro, y'all got to go back to the 70s, 80s, stuff like that. A lot of the old legend stuff, they was wilding in the comics, novels, and stuff like that. They was tripping, like they was doing anything, you know, with the Force, you know. So, yeah, I mean, when it comes to like the dyad thing, yeah, it's odd, sure, but at the same time, I think they wrote it pretty well in the sense of like, yeah, this only happens every 1,000 or so years. Now, if they was like, hey, guess what? Somebody else woke up tomorrow and they're a dyad too, and they're a dyad. Matter of fact, you could flip a coin and you could become a dyad tomorrow. I'd be like, you know what I'm saying?
Dyad for the audience.
Essentially, there's two people specifically bound by the Force, and they have a specialized Force connection. It's so strong that they can do pretty much what he was saying, like, you know, pass stuff to each other, like, you know, teleport, stuff like that. You know what I'm saying? But it's only them two people specifically, and it only happens every like 1,000 or so years or something like that.
So Kylo and Rey are dyads.
Right. But yeah, but essentially, canon-wise anyway, granted, there's been theories about other people who might have been dyads, for instance, like Revan, and I forgot who the other one was from Old Republic, but there was people have theorized that them two might have been, but then again, that was the Old Republic, so that was mad long ago. So that would fall into like what they set up, that it's only every something 1,000 years or whatever. So you know what I mean? So like, yeah, like when they first introduced it, I remember I thought it was odd, but when they straight up, as soon as they said concrete, this only happens every some thousands of years or so, that's where I'm like, okay, well, that's cool for me then. It's not like anybody can do it. You know what I'm saying? If everybody was just able to do it, then yeah, that'd be odd. But the fact that these are two specialized MacGuffin people, essentially the same as Anakin, who was also a MacGuffin child. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't really care. Like, you know what I mean? Like, as long as you establish. Now, if in the next trilogy, if it takes place 1,000 or so years and they set up another dyad, that would make sense because it's only every 1,000. So I forgot what the actual number they put on it, but if the next trilogy takes place 15 days away and there's a new dyad, then I would agree with you when it was just like, hey, bro, y'all said it was only 1,000. Why is there a new dyad all of a sudden? You know what I'm saying? So yeah,
right.
That's my piece on it.
So I'll just say this, because then we can move on to the topic, is that I agree completely. First of all, thank you for agreeing with me in terms of the continuity. So you're like-minded in that continuity matters. And as long as they're consistent with the continuity of a dyad, that's fine. But I will admit that I cannot refute the fact that they've never mentioned dyad, but they never mentioned they could not. And also it's not established that it's not continuity. So they do have the liberty. If George Lucas did not, in his wisdom, make definitive limits about dyads, then it is fair game. So I agree with that. And so as long as they don't break it, then I will also.
I mean, like that's one of the things I like about the Force, essentially, or that I've always liked about the handling of the Force. I know a lot of people have said that they wish there were more limits on the Force. I kind of don't. I like that. I like the fact that the Force is as strong or as weak as the person using it. You know what I'm saying? I'm cool with that because to me it gives a lot of creativity in the story. Now, yeah, some things are going to be kind of crazy. Like, God forbid, if they wrote that a Jedi used the Force to turn into a werewolf, that would be weird. But I would just have to go with it because they never wrote that you can't do that. Like, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like, I think in one of the comics, I think in the Dr. Aphra comics, like they straight up said that there's a planet where you could essentially go, and there's a spot on the planet where you could go, and if you're a non-Force user, you could essentially go there and turn yourself into a Force wielder and stuff like that. You know what I'm saying? Granted, it's only on that one particular planet in Dr. Aphra, but still, it's just like, as I know, because like people will say, "Oh, well, that's ridiculous. That can't happen." Who told y'all that? George Lucas didn't say that. George Lucas still won't put limits on the. Well, he don't got no creative say anyway. But like, even if he did, matter of fact, considering some of the ideas of George Lucas's brain, I feel like he probably would have wrote something crazier. To be honest with you, like I think he probably would have. There's no limits to what I mean. Even when you think about like the way he was creating aliens, like he would just take aliens that somebody designed, brought to the design. He said, "Cool, all right, take the head off that one, put it on this one, and give him 6 arms." You know what I mean? Like that man's brain is all over the place. I mean, he might have wrote something crazier.
I mean, this is a world where everybody understands every language in the universe ever. Because I'm like, so, but that's interesting. So that. And I love to hear you two's like opinions on this, like, because nowadays every time something new gets released, you get those group of fans that's like, "Oh, this isn't what Star Wars is supposed to be. They're losing the fucking plot, man. They're ruining the but as y'all both explained, like the explanation of the Force is pretty fucking vague. And and basically any author can do what they want. So I mean, I don't know, like what.
Well, like take it another step further, right? With the whole, one of the biggest things I remember hearing growing up from older fans was being mad about the midichlorian things. And it's like, oh, you mean to tell me the Force is made up of midichlorians? There was something they introduced in the prequels, and there was people who was going around crying, talking about why would George Lucas ruin the Force like that, saying because they felt that it limited the Force that with the whole midichlorian things. First off, they missed the midichlorian thing completely. The Force is not made up of midichlorians. The midichlorians are like how you can essentially determine the gauge of somebody's Force sensitivity. You know what I'm saying? Like they're like microscopic organisms or whatever. But for years,
use the Force.
Right, exactly. You know what I'm saying? Like they test your midichlorian count to see how sensitive to the Force you are. You know what I'm saying? But you know, like I remember growing up, people were mad that there existed a thing where you could almost limit the force with midichlorians. Granted, like I said, most people's understanding of it was off because in my opinion, they just didn't watch the movie correctly. But even still, like people was mad at one point that they almost put a limiter on the force. And you know what I mean? So like, yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like I said, I would be me personally. I don't know. Maybe it's like I don't know. Maybe I'm kind of in the wrong way on it, but like I don't know. I would be a bit upset if we got to a point where we were putting limiters on what the force can do. Like you know, I think my main issue would really come if we get to a point where everybody can do crazy stuff. You know what I'm saying? But so far, that's not the case. You know, also we haven't even tapped into, you know, we haven't even tapped into the what almost thousands, if not millions of years of force wielding. You know what I'm saying? Like we haven't even touched yet because they're still they got plans to do something about the first Jedi's and stuff like that. We haven't even touched them. You know what I'm saying? So like, yeah, I don't know. I said I think it depends too on like the individual author or like creator on what they're willing to do and what lengths they're willing to go with the force.
I agree. I want to jump in real quick to add this because I wanted to just make it clear where I stand is that using the force is vagueness that's been established. I don't want to be a free pass for creative liberty. So if I'm a writer, I want a story. It doesn't have to be, but I just want it. I don't want them to basically be able to make up a force ability without concern of how it fits with the story, with the lore or anything, just so they can get their little plot along. That's my only concern. And as you just said, we have a lot of history, a lot of potential, valuable, exciting stories to tell, which if we don't have any checks and balances, I'm afraid is going to blow the force use out of proportion. And we'll have a very huge issue of continuity, which we've agreed established is important.
Well, like I said, I would agree with you if they establish that everybody can do it. You know what I'm saying? Like if like I see I like the creative liberty thing because you could explore different sides of the force and you can explore like create characters who are strong in a particular ability. You know what I'm saying? Like I like that aspect of it where yeah, like if you see something crazy, oh my god, that's nuts. I didn't even think that somebody could do that. But in a way, like I guess I would share your concern if they was just like, boom, okay, now everybody at the Jedi, the Padawans, boom, they can do this. You know what I'm saying? And in that case, then I'd be like, okay, no, I'd agree with you. I'd be like, hey, like, why is this little 6-year-old being able to conjure lightning storms in space and stuff like that? You know what I mean? Like, so I would agree with you on that point. But so far, it don't seem like, that's really what's happening. You know what I'm saying? Like it'd be different if like I don't know, I'm just trying to what's the little Wookiee Jedi dude from Clone Wars? Like if I found out the little Wookiee Jedi dude from Clone Wars was like transferring his consciousness and creating babies with the Force, you know what I'm saying? Then I'd be like, hey, bro, when he learn how to do that? You know what I mean?
Well, we need him to do it for the plot. I'm saying.
Well,
I mean, I'm with
right.
you, but how about this? Can I just challenge it for a second? Because I would suggest that they actually have done this already. I think that's where we can enter. Is like you don't think they have already. I actually think they've already taken creative liberties too far. Before I get into that, I want to first make two things clear. One, I do love creative liberties too. I actually want more things than we've seen happening in Star Wars. I think that might have been missed, but I actually want a lot of things we haven't seen in the new, especially with the Sith, because it's been talked about that it can do things that Jedi don't do, and what we've seen. And there's a lot of things there that I think we could explore.
I think they might do that for Old Republic.
Exactly, in Old Republic. I actually would love to see some of that. But what I was saying is the checks and balances. They should not do things that are not reasonable within what we've seen. like being able to fly through space as like a Super Saiyan or something. Like that's not what we've seen. If all of a sudden they were doing it back in the day, I would have really a hard time imagining why they're not doing it in what we've seen so far, just as a wild example.
Well, my bad. I didn't mean to cut you off, bro. I guess like, so for instance, when you say that, I think where it was weird in Last Jedi when Leia did it, I think the issue with that, because I can agree with that point specifically, because that was an issue I had. One of the issues I had with that specifically is outside of Legends material, in the official canon, especially in terms of live action, we never even seen Leia so much as force lift a cup. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So I think that's where that particularly was weird. But to me, kind of where my point is coming from, that was weird in terms of the character, not in terms of the ability. Like, God forbid I seen Luke or somebody like Palpatine or somebody do that. I would believe they could do that because they dedicated their life to this. They, this is what they be doing. You know what I'm saying? Like, they eat, breathe, and sleep this. Leia Organa is a politician and a part-time war general. At no point did we, granted, there was people who was big fans of the Legends material from like that. I think they said they did a lot of that type of stuff with her in the 90s and stuff. But there was a lot of fans who was like fans of hers in like the 90s Legends material and stuff who knew that she could do stuff like that, which is cool. I don't fault them for being fans of that stuff. But as we've determined, back in 2014, they said, boom, bam, that stuff's not canon. Well, technically it never really was canon, but it's officially not canon. And then second, we was not given any prior build. I think actually, hold on. The only live action reference to Leia having any sort of force abilities whatsoever in the official canon was in Empire Strikes Back when Luke got his hand chopped off and he was hanging on the thing, and she had the mental thing where she was like, "Hey, I think he's hanging on that beam over there." That's the only time we even got a reference or even a nod to her having force abilities and stuff. So I think that's where one of my issues was with that scene, but I didn't have an issue with the power itself. If I saw anybody else who was actually training in the force to do that, I don't think I would have had an issue. I only really had an issue because Leia Organa herself did it.
I agree with you 100%. I actually think the power makes sense, especially that in space. I think it's reasonable. Where I don't, I'll put a word on it. I don't like the story progression. We did not have a movie, a TV show, anything canon that just showed Leia being trained by Luke. She was a Jedi Knight, right? I think that's what they said in episode, what was it, 9 or 8 or 9. It established that
she was a Jedi.
Was trained because she trained Rey.
She built her own lightsaber and stuff too.
So why were we not seeing this? Why? I want to see that. Like, if you're gonna have this whole movie,
right?
There's a lot that could have been there. By the way, I also have not mentioned that I love some of the outtakes. In preparation for this podcast show, I actually rewatched the sequel trilogy. By the way, for Tenzin, you're welcome, Tenzin. And watching the second time, I liked it way more than the first. I still have issues from what we just talked about. Some of the power's fine, but the story, I did not like how the stories were done. I felt like it could have been done better.
The only one I'll say I had an issue with the story, even though I will still argue that I love the movie. I mean, I love most Star Wars stuff, but the only one I could even complain on the story still, because I've watched all of them many times. So on my first watches of all three of them, I'll say the only one I had a true issue with at the time of my first watch was episode 8. Now that I've rewatched them all, I like episode 8 a bit more. Only problems I can see in terms of story now is episode 9. However, the thing I always tell people, one of them, even though I like that movie still, I'll still argue that I like that movie. There's a lot of great moments in that movie. My only problem with a lot of the people, especially on Twitter, just a lot of the people who complain about episode 9 are the reason episode 9 turned out that way. Half the stuff they did in episode 9 was stuff people asked them to do after being mad after episode 8. Then they did it, and it was like, oh man, I don't like this. Yeah, because they listened to y'all. That was my only issue with J.J. Abrams and them. Stop listening to people on Twitter. They never wrote anything a day in their lives. There's a reason they in their mama's basement complaining and not in Hollywood. I was so like I said, I'll still always argue for the enjoyment of that movie, but there are things they did in that movie that you could tell they only did because people cried so hard about episode 8. I'll say, for instance, the most obvious and blatant one, the erasure of Rose Tico. Rose Tico is in that movie for 2 minutes, and when you watch the movie, you could tell that she had probably 45 minutes worth of screen time. And after they saw them tweets after episode 8, they said, and cut them joints up out of there. You know what I'm saying? Same thing with the whole thing with Ray's parents. You know good and well she was only supposed to be a regular chick from the hood, aka Jakku. But you know, and yet people got mad. They said, hey, how come she's not related to anybody important? This is stupid. If you don't fix this, I'm not watching it anymore. Then they went and switched up the story. And guess what them same people did? I can't believe you guys switched up the story. Y'all asked them to. Oh my God. Like, and don't get me wrong, I wasn't really mad at the Palpatine thing. Like, also, any excuse to bring Palpatine back, I'm cool. Also, Star Wars is full of people coming back. You know what I'm saying? One thing I'll say is, and I know I'm coming from a place of not being a big Clone Wars dude, so I'll accept my L already. There is no way you can jump for joy and foam at the mouth over Darth Maul being on TV and still be mad about Palpatine being back. No, they are both stupid. No, they are both stupid. Both, you cannot sit there and be like, oh, Darth Maul coming back makes sense because he willed himself back together. But then Palpatine being back, they'd be like, no, but he should be dead. No, fool. Matter of fact, there's another Star Wars dude who should be still dead that I'll always argue is stupid. He came back too. And this man don't even got force sensitivity. Boba Fett. Boba Fett should be Sarlacc too. Okay? And the fact that people will look you dead in your eyes and say Maul and Boba Fett makes sense, but Palpatine coming back, that's where they jumped the shark. Shut up. Like, there's no way you can argue with that. No, I refuse. Like, I refuse to believe that there are people who actually think that them two deaths is better. Like, it just.
So what? I mean, I don't know. I mean, now, if I remember, how did they explain Darth Maul again?
Darth Maul. Okay, you probably got more information on this, Hubris. But from what I remember, granted, because this was around the time where I kind of stopped watching the show when I was younger. From what I remember, the explanation was he used his hatred and dark side abilities to essentially will himself back to life. And then I think also the Night Sisters had something to do with like kind of bringing him back to, or was that Savage Opress? No, I think that was him. Wasn't the Night Sisters involved with bringing him back or whatever? Night Sisters essentially are Force users, but they use it as witchcraft and not like, you know.
Oh, those are Acolyte characters?
Night Sisters came in Clone Wars first, but they've popped up in a bunch of different stuff.
I missed that. I missed pointing this out, as I actually didn't know they were involved. My understanding was that he actually willed himself. He never died, is what I thought. Is that he he actually was cut in half. Because when it was alien species and it being a lightsaber, it didn't kill him immediately. But he should have died eventually from his wounds. But instead, his hatred and strengthened his use of dark side to actually heal himself by grafting to the metal around him in the junkyard he fell into.
Yeah, and he made that stupid spider body.
He sure did.
Keep in mind, this man was cut in half and thrown down a shaft. Meanwhile, Palpatine got electrocuted and thrown down a shaft. But there are people who will look you dead in your eyes and say, Maul coming back makes sense, but Palpatine is stupid. And I just be like,
now,
well,
so how did
I can make a little case for that real quick. Is that I agree that they both should come back first, but the case is that here's where I was saying expanded powers. Palpatine came back because he died, and he basically his body's gone. But what happened is his ghost spirit went, and instead of going into the dark side or whatever, being one with the Force, he went and inhabited a clone of himself, which based on established lore does make sense that he can do that because the clone is his own essence and didn't have a Force spirit in it when it was made. So that's kind of the reasoning for it.
Right. And I get you. And don't get me wrong, I'm not arguing for either comeback. I just don't like, because I got a friend who I argue with all the time, and he will swear up and down Maul's coming back is the best thing that ever happened, but will look you dead in your face and say Palpatine coming back is stupid and don't make sense. And I'll scream at him so bad one day. I'm like, how? It don't make sense. Like, and then when it comes to the Boba Fett one, I get it. I get what they're trying to say. Beskar is mad strong and all this other stuff.
Mm-hmm.
It's a big hole in the ground full of teeth. Somehow this man survived. Keep in mind, he can't use the Force at all. Somehow he survived, and all he got was a little bird on the side of his face like Zuko in Avatar The Last Airbender. And I'll still always say him being alive don't make sense either. It's stupid and don't make sense.
What was the explanation?
Because his armor, their explanation is that, because I think this was the same explanation they gave in Legends, because they brought him back to life in Legends too. I thought that was stupid back then too, but I think the explanation is the armor, they use an alloy called Beskar, and it's supposed to be like one of the strongest metals in Star Wars, and they're saying that the
lightsaber resistant is that strong.
Yeah, so they were saying that the Sarlacc pit couldn't bite through it and stuff like that, and I'm just like, okay, whatever. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like
I mean, how deep? Well, I guess he still had his jetpack. I don't know. It's like, I mean, I don't know. Like, isn't there such thing as stomach acid? Never mind.
But
not think too hard. But you know.
But again, I'm not here to argue the validity of them bringing these three characters back. I think, like, the point I'm trying to make is there are pockets of this fan base who will look you dead in the eyes and say, bruh, this is the dumbest point to die on. Like, none of them make sense. Like, not a single one of them makes sense. I mean, even when you then again, that's Star Wars though. There's a whole lot that don't make sense. I mean, straight up the fact that Darth pledges immaculate conception Anakin into his mama's stomach. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, that don't make sense either. But we all roll with it. You know what I'm saying? Like,
so he already states Jesus. I don't know.
Exactly. You know, so but yeah, you know, but I guess I went on that tangent because I was talking about, you know, people complaining about Palpatine in episode 9 and him being related to Rey. And I was just like, you know, again, the only reason they did that is because a lot of y'all was so very, very bad that she was not connected to one of, they're not actually royals, but I call them the royal Star Wars families of Kenobi, Skywalker, and you know, a bunch of other ones. But like, you know, because I'm like, Tenzin, I don't know if you saw social media after episode 8 came out, but people was hot after that movie because they revealed in that movie that her parents was just regular folks and she wasn't related to nobody special. She was just regular degular. They dropped her off at the orphanage essentially and left her to chill by herself. And people was very mad about that because, and I think this is one of the other main issues I'm going to bring up with the fandom in general. A lot of people in between episodes 7 and 8 wrote episode 8 in their brain. And then when episode 8 came out and it didn't do the stuff that they wrote in their brain, they got mad and was very upset. And I think that's been true of Star Wars people for a very long time. A very, very long time. I'd argue back to the original trilogy because what was it? In between Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi, a lot of people wrote Return of the Jedi in their head. And then Return of the Jedi came out, people hated Return of the Jedi because they was complaining about the Ewoks and stuff like that. You know what I'm saying? Like, I mean, that's one of that's one of the biggest issues with the Star Wars fandom is like they think they're the writers, and so like
Sure.
and so yeah, like when people ask like what went wrong with episode 9, I'm like the problem is, and don't get me wrong, this is still Disney's fault for doing it. I'm not going to let them off the hook. But the problem is so many people cried about certain stuff, and then when they got the stuff they cried for, they got mad about it. There's just like, okay, well, what do you want? You know what I'm saying? Y'all didn't want Rey to be a random chick. Y'all didn't want her being related to somebody special. Who's she supposed to be? You know what I'm saying? Like, it's just like, y'all didn't want Rose Tico in the movie. Then in episode 9, y'all complained, well, where'd she go? Why we waste all that time with her last movie? Because y'all asked for her to be taken out the movie, dog. Like, I don't know I don't know what y'all want. Same thing with the whole Finn Jedi thing. You know what I'm saying? Like, okay, Finn, I'll be honest with you. As someone who watched all the trailers, I paid attention to the casting of the sequels, all types of stuff. There was never a point where I thought Finn was supposed to be a Jedi, period. I thought straight up that Finn was just an ex-stormtrooper. Okay, people gaslit themselves into thinking he was force sensitive because they showed a poster from episode 7 of him with a lightsaber. That's it. But it was on purpose. It was on purpose because they were hiding the fact that Rey was force sensitive. We didn't find out Rey was force sensitive until episode 7 came out. That wasn't in any of the promo stuff, her using the force, anything like that. Like it was a fake out. You know what I'm saying? And I'd argue it was a pretty good fake out. At no point in episode 7 did I suspect she had the force until they straight up told us at Boz Kanata's the little cafe joint there was at episode 7. You know what I'm saying? But yet people got mad in episode 8 because Finn didn't have the force. And then in episode 9, they showed hints of Finn having the force. And it was like, well, how come y'all didn't make him have force sensitivity and stuff like that? And I'm just like, because he wasn't supposed to be the force sensitive one. They only threw that in there to appease y'all. He was never supposed to have the force. Like, and for real, I don't think he needed to have the force. I was always under the mindset that, to me, saying that he needed to be a Jedi was so reductive to his character because I feel like him being an ex-stormtrooper was decent enough anyway. Like I never, and also it's not lost on me too that so many white people was already mad that he was a stormtrooper. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, that was crazy. I'll never forget that. I was like, bruh, we had a black Jedi already. Why are y'all mad that there's a black stormtrooper? Samuel L. Jackson was running out there dolo with a purple lightsaber. But y'all mad about a black stormtrooper? Like that's ridiculous.
So, oh my gosh, there's a lot I have to say to this. And remind me to come back to the black stormtrooper part because that's real. I think I'll just say this first is that I think that there's a good reason to call out the bad actors. You've made a lot of points at them. There's a lot of hate that's not warranted. There's going to be bad Star Wars fans. There's going to be bad fans in anyone in Stardom and fandom. And so that's acknowledged. I will say that there unfortunately are reasons for, without being a bad actor, a lot of good fans like you and me to be unhappy though with the sequel trilogy. And it comes down to two things: poor writing and poor continuity. And I'm going to say this is the hill I'm going to die on because I'm staying on this hill. My biggest issue with the sequel trilogy was just that. The writing and the continuity. Not even the whole like Star Wars, but just between 7, 8, and 9. That is the issue. And what I want to point out is for folks for episode 8, I think the issue is the failure to maintain the lead, essentially. I think Sorry, I'm trying to get a check. I wrote a note, but I'm trying to remember what I was referring to. I think it was about Rey. Okay. When it comes to her parentage, I am actually happy with being a Palpatine. Not because I agree with all Star Wars and what everything is made, or that it's like they said it, so it's great. Because there's a lot of things in Star Wars I don't agree with. But I agree that she should be a Palpatine only because in Episode 7, they made it clear she's special. Why? Because they made it clear that she wanted to wait on Jakku, that planet she was from, for someone to find her. They emphasize that in multiple scenes. Someone is coming for her. And it was a big deal. That is a very common trope in film to show significance for someone's parentage when they're an orphan. So that was a signal. And I'm going, anyone can argue, but that is a well-established signal. So if you're going to do that, then in Episode 8 or 9, you need to tell us, you need to validate. She needs to be a Palpatine, a Skywalker. I don't give a damn. A cousin, fourth removed from Mace Windu. No, payment's different. It doesn't matter. She's somewhat important. But the issue, and here's why I really want to make the claim is because of the fact that they had two different directors. They had director for F7. They didn't like how it turned out. They had a whole new director, a whole new writer, basically. They didn't have a full idea of how the last trilogy should go. That was my problem with it. And it was very clear, because in Episode 8, for some reason, it's fine if that was the reason. They wanted everyone to feel included. Everyone could be a Jedi. All boys and girls could be a Jedi. You know, you can do brutal space magic. You do all the lightsaber weapons. That's fine. I get that. But here's an issue. You didn't establish that with your main character in Episode 7. She's supposed to be special. You then subvert that in Episode 8. And then you go back to in Episode 9. That is not something that can just easily be brushed over. And the last thing I want to say is why I actually, this is a hill I will die on too. I actually disagree with saying Rey should be like everybody. She can't. And is why I say I don't agree with all Star Wars, but I accept the lore. George Lucas established that your ability to use the Force is tied to midichlorians. He established that everyone's midichlorians are different. He established the only reason Skywalker was bad A was because his was off the charts. That's it. He made it mathematical. Your ability, like athleticism, is genetics. It's based on good genes. Maybe it's not based on like race or anything, whatever, but it's based on something special that is ingrained in who you are, and you build from that. That's fine. Problem is, though, you cannot then change that up in the sequel to say Rey's actually everyone, and then go back to it on Episode 9. That's my hill I want to die on.
Not feel you. I mean, another thing they've established, even in the prequels, was that the Force does what it wills also. So, yep. I mean, literally, the whole midichlorian thing, that's a good measuring thing. But at the end of the day, Force will do what the Force want to do. You know what I'm saying? So, like, I mean, it's kind of both. It's kind of a yes and type of thing when it comes to, you know, us like an established, you know, but I feel what you're saying, though. Mm-hmm. In terms of the Rey waiting, like being special, when they were saying, now granted, it's been about a year since I watched Episode 7, but I'm pretty sure it was implied that she said, I'm waiting for somebody. The implication was that it was her family, period, parents, whatever, somebody was going to come get her that she was related to. I don't think we as the audience were supposed to take it as, oh, she's waiting on somebody we're definitely going to know. You know what I'm saying? I don't think that was...
I'll push back, if you'll let me, real quick on that.
Yeah,
that the fact that they added mystery to it is my issue. And then the second thing is they made Rey overpowered. You cannot say she's waiting on someone, and yes, we could say it's family and not important, sure, but you could just say it. You could literally just say who she's waiting on and establish not important. You left it vague. That's established. You didn't have to do it. It's a plot device. Because of plot device, there has to be a reason. There has to be motive. Second, the character. You didn't make her normal. You didn't make her like any other Jedi who has it can be a little Force sensitive, who has some ability of sensitivity to the Force, and through training, guidance, through years of honing, can do at least a little bit of what Rey did. You made her able to do what Luke could do, what Leia could do, potentially, what Anakin could do, what Obi-Wan could do in day one. She literally, in the first episode, beat a Sith Lord. In the first episode, after holding a lightsaber for the first time. and yet she's supposed to be.
Well, I'll push back on that part.
Well,
in terms of her force abilities, I could say she was mad strong in episode 7. In terms of the lightsaber thing, they established Kylo was whack. Like, he wasn't fighting nobody else with a lightsaber. Like, he never fought nobody solo dolo with a lightsaber, period. Like, so in terms of him getting beat, I'll be honest, that was bound to happen. Like, he was training with nobody. Like, and also they established that she had hands too. Like,
Finn kind of like warm it up for her though, like, because Finn
that
fought
too.
him first, right?
Yeah,
and then Finn like, but that's what confused me. I'm like, this nigga's a damn former child soldier. How was he able to wound Kylo? So I mean, I don't know.
I have a lot of pushback. I don't want to finish taking your points, but if you let me, I have some major pushback to that. Is that the problem is that they should have had a movie years ago so we can see Kylo and see what he did to show that he was whack. The problem is looking at what happened in episode 7 or was it episode 8? They did flashback. In the flashbacks, they established that he was the #1 best student of the new Jedi that Luke has trained. He trained with other Jedi who actually through Jedi arts and trained with each other, fought each other, established regular fights. It's not his first time fighting someone with a lightsaber. And he also, most importantly, killed almost every single other Jedi that was there by himself, single-handed. With a few other friends with him, but still, isn't his first fight, basically.
Right. No, I get you. I was just saying, like, that to me, at least at the time, like, I hear what you're saying, and you actually did bring up a decent point with the Jedi Temple stuff. But to me, at the time, I guess that wasn't really that big of a deal to me because, like, it wasn't like he was. I mean, I know they wasn't like Jedi level, but still, these are people who they established earlier in the movie that they like had decent amount of hands on them. Like Finn having stormtrooper training, Rey we saw was whooping ass on Jakku. You know what I'm saying? So like, it wasn't like she was just a scrub out here. So like that. I don't know that. And also for real, I wouldn't exactly say Rey straight up smashed him. Like, to me, it kind of looked like she kind of got she got a couple decent hits, and then they kind of just left him in the woods to die. Like, to me, it didn't really see. I'll say, because to me, when I think of like great lightsaber combat or like fighting forms, I go to the prequels. And to me, she wasn't doing no prequel stuff on him until episode 9 after she got the Leia training. You know what I'm saying? Now, after she got the Leia training, then she was kind of like, doing some flippy dippy stuff on him. But like, I wouldn't say that she was doing like all that to him in episode 7. Like episode 7, it seemed like she smacked him. I'm not gonna say she didn't beat him, but to me it wasn't it. But to me, it kind of seemed like low key she got mad lucky, But yeah, I don't know. Even in episode, like even after I've rewatched the trilogy, I don't know. It's just I never got the vibe she was supposed to. I got the vibe she was supposed to be special because of the Force, but I never got the vibe that she was supposed to be special because, hey, you remember this dude? Like, she's related to him. That vibe I never really got. And even if that vibe was there, I think to me that's why that scene in episode 8 was kind of dope, because in a way it was like not exactly a red herring. It's almost it's like a dangling fruit type of thing. It's like they dangled the fruit that she was somebody important, and then bam, LOL psych. You know what I mean? She's not important. She was some like, and right. To me, I don't know. I hate to be contrarian, but I kind of liked that at the time. Like well, actually, no, I'll be honest with you. When I first watched it, I hated it. When I rewatched it, because I was mad at the time, because I think I was kind of on your side. And I did the thing that I accused other people of doing, of writing the movie in my head. Because in my head, she was like the daughter or granddaughter of, remember, because I don't know if you remember, there's the whole theory that Obi-Wan and Sabine had a secret kid. Like, you know what I'm saying? Yeah. I put that in my brain and it wouldn't go away. And so I thought she may have been an offspring of them or like a grand.
I take it.
Yeah. Anyway, but when I rewatched the trilogy, I was like, oh, I mean, that is kind of cool. Like I did like where they was like, hey man, like y'all was hoping she was gonna be related to somebody. She's nothing. Like, you know what I mean? Like not nothing in terms of like strength. Yeah, like nothing in terms of like legacy. Bloodline. Like, you know, it is what it is, you know. But no, I mean, I can, like I said, you could take it either way. But like, I think to me, don't get me wrong, I liked the Palpatine twist. Like I said, I still like Episode 9. So I don't hate the Palpatine twist. I just hated why they did it. I hated it because they specifically did it because you know people were so mad about Episode 8. Yes. And that's the only reason why they did it. They was like, people's mad that she's not special, so we got to hurry up and make her special because people's ticked off. And I think that was my issue because I'm just like, bruh, why cave? You know what I'm saying? Like, just do what y'all gonna do. But instead, they caved. And honestly, I'm gonna keep it real. I think that was also one of the reasons why the whole Leia Jedi master thing happened in Episode 9. Because people was mad that she was essentially using the Force or using her connection with Kylo to become a better Force wielder, right? Or and people got mad about that. And then they really got mad about the whole Yoda sending down the lightning bolt, burning the Jedi text thing. So they was like, oh, people's upset. So boom, we got to give her a teacher. Boom, Leia's the teacher. Oh, guess what? She needs to learn Jedi stuff. Boom. There was one random book that wasn't burnt in the lightning storm. You know what I'm saying? That she read. You know what I'm saying? And then that's where I think that was more, even though I still like the movie, I still enjoy the movie. That was my main issue with Episode 9. And I'm just like, bro, y'all didn't have to do it. That's where, in terms of you, when you were saying it feels disjointed, I think that's the issue, is because for the final movie, that's supposed to be like the colliding point of the action. This is supposed to be what it is. This is where it's leading to. They hurry up and course corrected at the last minute because people kept yelling. And I think that's, I mean, Disney's done that same thing with Marvel so far. They've been doing a lot of that with Marvel and like some of the anger they've gotten, you know, in terms of reactions to recent Marvel stuff. And I just think that personally, if you want to say a criticism of Disney, that's my criticism. It's just really weak. Bruh, them people's not writing those scripts. Then people's not directing. They ain't producing your movies. Okay. Sure, they may be buying tickets at the box office, but even then, most of these people who's doing all that screaming and hollering is just doing that, screaming and hollering. Most of these people then already made their minds up about y'all before the movie came out. So they're not going to watch it anyway. So trying to capitulate to these people is crazy. And I think that was my issue with Episode 9 as a whole. It just felt like it was just a 2-hour long, hey, we're sorry. And it's just like, why? Why are you sorry? Like, I mean, to be honest with you, I think that's one of the reasons why we didn't see the Knights of Ren that much. Because people was like, oh, yeah, people's like, who are these people? We should be seeing Sith, and who are these random guys, you know, stuff like that. And then we got shorted on the Knights of Ren. That was one of the things I was really excited about. Right. I wanted to hear more about the Knights of Ren. We didn't see them at all until the tail end of Episode 9, where Ben goes up against him. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's where, like, you know, it's stuff like that where, yeah, if I had a criticism of Disney's control, it's that. It's like, y'all keep listening to the loudest, most like disingenuous portions of the fan base, and you're not listening to the people who actually want to see stuff. You know what I'm saying? Like, you know, yeah, I don't know. I mean,
let me add this real quick. I wanted to, before I forget my question, it says I agree. I've been all in the Kool-Aid that the poor writing and continuity came from a reactive base. It was very, very well observed. And so that's my issue. So definitely we agree it could have been way more jointed and the disjointed. Reasons can be debated, but I agree with you. It's because of the fan base, and that was a shortcoming, weakness, I would say, of the Disney exec leadership. I do have one question for you about a detail, because I'm curious about Savage lore, your thoughts on. There's a lot of it we talked about. I'll just focus on this one, and then we can move on. Yoda and Luke, they moved on, one with the Force. They are now interacting with the world, lighting things on fire, catching lightsabers in their hands. And by the way, I watched them because I know you haven't watched it in a while, but just quoting some of the scenes. And also lifting the X-Wing out of the water from the grave. So what are your thoughts on that as established lore?
See, I don't know. See, that's one of the things I don't really have too much of a problem with. To become a Force ghost, you're essentially giving yourself over to the Force anyway. So to me, being able to still use Force powers, that doesn't ruin anything. Again, if I had the issue with Force ghosts, I'll say, and I know it's supposed to be his sister, again, Leia should not have been able to become a Force ghost. That was crazy. Like, Luke becoming a Force ghost, I'm all for that. It's Luke. You know what I'm saying? But again, and it's kind of to what me and you both agree on, outside of old Legends material, we don't know Leia as a Jedi. How am I supposed to know that Leia was that OP that she was able to make herself a Force ghost? That's where I thought they was tripping, because I'm like, Leia should not be able to do that. Like, that's crazy. Like, you know what I mean?
Now
that'd be like,
to be a Force ghost? Is everyone in the club now?
Right, because that'd be like if we found out Kit Fisto became a Force ghost. I'd be like, hey, bro, like, I'm sorry. You know, no disrespect to Kit Fisto. You not invited, dog. Like, you not invited.
That's fair.
Yeah, like, you know what I'm saying? It's like, hey, like, how you get in here?
Right.
You know? Now, I mean, granted, you know, in the spirit of fairness, if I had to be my own critic, I'll say there is a decent counterpoint. Technically speaking, we don't know much about Qui-Gon Jinn's Jedi past, so we don't know why he was able to do it either. But, like, at the very least, it was established in Phantom Menace that he was kind of like that. You know what I mean? So I at least could believe he could do it. Whereas with Leia, we didn't see Leia pick up nary one lightsaber until episode 9. And next thing you know, she said, boom, I'm a Force ghost. And I'm like, hey, man, when you was able to do that? Like, also, that means you should have been doing way more. Like,
way more.
Because if I'm Poe, I'm digging her up from the dead and whooping her behind. You mean to tell me that you could have had a lightsaber helping us this whole time and you didn't do nothing? You was sitting there chilling in the back of the club.
For sure.
I mean, that's like that screenshot of what, an old episode of Super Friends, where it's like they're trying to save somebody from like a canoe, and you see Superman over there just like, what are you doing?
So happy self over.
Like, you could have easily flew over there, but you know, man, this is I'm just gonna say there's like we're like 15 minutes away from 90 minutes, but y'all are definitely flowing. I ain't want to but you know, I do want to hear the Humanist fans take on. Because you know, B, as I said, you know, Humanist, he's one of the few people that wasn't a huge fan of the Acolyte, but he has reasons outside of just black people and women. So I mean, but yeah, what's your take on the Acolyte, Humanist? I mean, I know y'all did touch on, you know, like Force abilities being added. You're just like, what the fuck is this? So like, what?
So, okay, man, I was wondering if I was going to be able to dodge this, but it's okay if I'm not. So, the Acolyte, I'm going to come out and say, let me get my little notes together. I haven't seen the Acolyte except once. I'll admit that, just so you know where I stand, I did not like it. I did not like it so much that I actually could not even rewatch it all the way through for this. I watched the sequel. I actually liked watching it again. Not saying I liked all the movies for various reasons, but Acolyte, watching it again was difficult. I did view a recap. I didn't get through all the whole recap because it was difficult. But in short, the Acolytes touches on the issues we've talked about. My issues with anything, especially prequels, is trouncing on established lore. Yes, you have creative freedoms to expand the notions of the Force and the Jedi and the Sith, but within limits of what I think is reasonable from what we saw in the episodes after the Acolyte, which is every episode that we have, because it happens 100 years before episode 1, Phantom Menace. So the burden on the Acolyte is immense from a lore continuity standpoint. So when I watched it, I was devastated. I would say I did not go in bad faith. I thought Acolyte was going to be great. I saw the trailers. I was excited for the cast. I was like, yes, let's go. But when I saw what I saw, I just saw plot hole after plot hole after plot hole danced over. I read reading comments of folks is, oh, it's fine. Just be happy who's in it and what it's about. I'm like, no, I don't care about that. I'm a fan of Star Wars. And being a fan of Star Wars is not that I like everything Star Wars. There's a lot of things about Star Wars I don't like. Just real quick to give context, the midichlorian things, I hate that point. I hate what George Lucas did because of that rule, I cannot accept that everyone is as equally powerful. Period. I would like that to be the case. I would like it to be training. I like it to be the foil of the Force. Hey, we want your destiny. Sure. I want people to be able to go and train and do some calisthenics, do whatever comes, and you can just lift plants. That would be amazing. But according to the midichlorians, you have a limit. That's in there. And so I work with what I got. So when it came to looking at the Acolytes, so you know where I'm coming from when I say plot holes, and it's not just, it's not just the Force powers and stuff because they call it the thread. We'll get to that in a second. Just, they had fire and space. Like homegirl, May, Osha, whichever, I can't for which one. I think Osha's a good one. Like her job is basically an astromech droid. Okay. But we saw her try to extinguish a fire in outer space. And I'm like, why are we seeing fire in outer space as a goal for someone when this is post 2000s? We know how physics works. We know fire can't exist in space without oxygen. That doesn't make sense to me, but here we are. She has oxygen in a little mass, but there's fire out in space. Like, what are we doing here? So anyway, it's little things like that. I don't like plot holes. That's kind of how I am. So then we have Force levitation. You basically, if you can levitate, you can fly. This is where this is a hill that I'll die on, and I may be wrong. I don't like the idea of Jedi, Sith, or anyone levitating because that's defying gravity. I'm cool with Leia flying through space. There's no gravity. It's established Jedi can jump super high based on their Force ability. That's fine. You're pushing against gravity. But there is a limit. You cannot beat gravity forever. We have a Jedi who's depressed for 10 years floating in a room. What was that, episode 3? Sorry, I rewatched at least some of it. So I think it's episode 3 or 2. I could not get over the fact that this dude is floating in space, floating in the room, which means he can fly now. But also, he has an invisible force field that is constantly protecting him. And I'm like, well, if that was the case, there's a lot of things that Jedi did have to worry about. You don't have to worry about like the Clone Wars, like episode 2, when Jedi fought all of the blasters, all the droids and stuff. You're just make a shield. Everyone make a shield around you. There's a lot of plot devices when you give people powers that did not exist in episodes that exist now. And the number one thing, and this is the hill I will definitely rest on, and with my head up high, is that Kit Fisto, Sam Kit, established the Jedi had no clue of Sith for 1,000 years. He said millennia, which means 1,000 years. I look at Webster. 1,000 years. The Acolyte is 100 years ago. Within that 1,000 years, the Acolyte's about Sith. Darth Plagueis, Darth Kimmer. These guys are Sith. They interact with the Jedi Order, not secretly. They know who they are, and they're not telling anyone. The established now is they basically kept a secret from the rest of the council. That doesn't make any logical sense. And that basically, essentially, is what you have to go on. That is what I said earlier. What was the word I used, the phrase? Subsetting. Yes. Suspending disbelief. That is my issue. The Acolyte went over and over again through hurdles of almost intentionally. I don't think it's intentional, but just through, I would say, writing incompetence to make it difficult for me to accept it as established prequel lore within Star Wars. That is my biggest issue. There's more to it, especially when it comes to the thread, the Night Sisters, the whole the chance of one is power of one, power of two, power of many. It was a bit lame, things of that nature. That's a whole other thing. But when it comes to continuity, that's why I did not like.
All right. So first off, technically speaking, Khmer never called himself a Sith. Period. At best, you could say he was a dark force user. At no point did Khmer say, "Hey, y'all, before I stab you in the face, I'm a Sith." Like he never did. A matter of fact, I don't think the word Sith gets mentioned until he's by himself with at the final episode with what's that girl's name? I can't remember which twin it
was. Osha?
I'm trying to remember which twin it was. I think it was Osha at the time. I think he says the word Sith straight up to Osha. And that is the first and I think the final time they say Sith. Other than that, he doesn't call himself Darth anything. Like, so yeah, sure, I can understand in terms of it's convenient. And I said that at the time it was convenient. But technically speaking, straight up, no one says anything about a Sith. All they know is that he is a dark force user out here boom bop booping everybody in the woods. Like, also when it comes to old boy levitating, I would agree if they didn't set up a special circumstance. He straight up gave his mind straight up to the force. He was so depressed that he took a vow of silence and locked himself in constant meditation in the force. So him levitating and having the force wall and stuff, it wasn't just because, hey, it's Tuesday, I'm doing this. It's because he gave his essence over to the force. That's the only way he was able to do that. Now, again, if Osha said, hey, guess what? I'm finna just do that right now. Boom bop and and starts flying and everything, then I would agree with you. But that man had a special circumstance. He was so traumatized about what happened. I ain't gonna spoil it, but he was so traumatized about what happened that night that he said, all right, forget it. Lock me in this room. And I'm giving myself, there's been like monks and stuff in the Catholic Church who've done stuff like that, like giving themselves over to prayer. Except in this case, his prayer is to a mystical space entity that gives you powers. And he gave himself totally over to the force until, that one scene that I'm not going to spoil. But you know what I mean? Right. But like, but other than that, yeah, he gave himself over mind, body, and soul to that. Well, not body, because then he would have been a Force Ghost. But he gave him essentially he did possible. Part one of the Force Ghost thing. He gave his mind over to it and just was chilling. So there's that aspect too. I'm trying to think. What was the other thing you said? There was the levitating. There was the Sith thing, and then no, I think that was it. Right? You said the levitation.
Yeah, the other one was. That was only Force ones I mentioned. Then, because the other thing that's Force related is the color changing of just adding one more. What do you think about turning her lightsaber red?
The bleeding?
Yeah, the bleeding.
I mean, from what I remember hearing, granted, like I said, I didn't really read any of the outside material, outside the live action stuff. So I didn't read any of the novels or the comics or anything, but from what I heard, that's something they established a long time ago, was the bleeding of your crystal. So and I think she did it in anger, and she straight up turned her back on the light side and gave herself over to the dark side. So yeah, she straight up, I mean, that, I don't know, to me, I didn't have any red flags with that, because I was like, oh, okay, this is how I was always told how bleeding worked. You bled yourself out. Now, granted, she didn't actually cut herself, but she, it was almost like she spiritually cut herself in order to bleed the crystal.
Let me add to that then, because I'll first say that the way they did it was essentially turning the lightsaber into a mood ring or a mood saber. And I'll let that sink for a second as I talk about what originally is the case. Rather than you being Sith, and then if you hold a lightsaber, it turns red, which would be a contradiction to what we've seen in multiple episodes now, where Sith have held regular lightsabers, and that has not happened. Rather, when you bleed a lightsaber, which is established, yes, you have to take out the kyber crystal and do a special ritual with it. And that's how you corrupt it. You have to corrupt it first. And only after it's corrupted can it then work again. It has to accept your corruption and then turn red saber. And then you put it back in your lightsaber and use it. Not you just hold on a lightsaber, you get mad, you get a little angry, you summon the force, and it bleeds. Because we've already had Jedi that have actually done that in lore, where they've actually gone to the dark side mid-fight, and lightsaber did not change. The best example of that is Anakin. He literally went through episode 3, killed all the younglings, Mace Windu, potentially, depending on how they want to go. They want to bring him back. Hope they do. Kill all the younglings, kill all the folks on Mustafar, and then fought Obi-Wan. The most epic, I believe, one of the greatest fights of all time, or at least the best one in the trilogy. By the way, the third episode is my favorite trilogy. That one movie contradicts that entire scene, and that's my biggest issue. Continuity. It's not a mood ring. You have to do something special. And I hope they show this, not to spoil. If they have a Darth Vader show, a series, I hope it's a series, not a movie, after episode 3, between 3 and 4, and it shows how Anakin becomes Darth Vader and what it does afterward, bruh, it actually will show him bleed the crystal so it becomes his lightsaber that we see in episode 4. And it's not it being a mood ring.
Right. Now, I mean, I don't disagree with you, but also, I guess, I don't know, this is where, like, my regular fan brain comes. That scene was dope when she did it, so I was kind of just like, I don't really care. Like, it was when she did it, it was hard. Like, I was like, yo, this is dope. Like, like how they did it was hard, and I was like, yo, this is like, this is really dope. And I was like, I mean, I get what you're saying. There's usually a ritual and stuff like that. I didn't know about the ritual. This is the way they did it in the show was the way it was always described to me on how they bled it. So I didn't really see any issue. But if there is 2 different ways, that is weird. And usually, for real, in cases like this, all it takes is another writer and marrying those 2 things together, and boom, that's the new ritual. Like, you know, so I don't know. Like I said, in the scene itself, it was dope, and I didn't really care. So I was like, all right, like, it is what it is.
Let me be clear. I agree with you. I actually love it. So even though I'm on the hill to die, and I will stay here, but I'm coming down, I'm shouting down from the hill to say, I am not here happy. I am unhappy because I want to see that in Acolyte. I thought it was dope. I really thought it was cool. I wish Anakin that we saw it happen last he turned. That would have been epic. For same with Osha. I thought that was dope. I agree. Problem is it didn't happen before. So what I want to see is, and maybe this is okay, this is what I want to see. You either fix it and say it never happens, or you have to now change episode 3 and make it happen there. That's what I want to see, basically. And now I'll be happy.
Or, I mean, like I said, all it would take is just another writer being like, yeah, you could do it both ways. It is what it is. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's like, you know, I mean, yeah, I know it sounds goofy, but within the grand scheme of this universe, I don't think anybody's really gonna care how you bleed the crystal, just as long as the evil people got their red lightsaber. Like, you know, so I don't know. I don't think that's gonna be like that big of a deal. I mean, like I said, even within the scheme of that show, that wasn't even as dope as that moment was. That wasn't even the biggest moment for me. Like, I mean, to me, the greatest moment, the greatest stuff from that show for real was the combat. That was some of the best combat Star Wars ever had. Was that show?
Beyond in the sequel era, it wasn't a movie, but it was a show. I will give it to it. That scene with Kilmer and the Jedi, that was the highlight of Acolyte for me. I loved it. That was some of the best fight scenes. And I always watch that part again. It was dope.
And they used Cortosis metal. Like, I never thought I'd see Cortosis. Like, Cortosis in live action, that's crazy. I never thought I'd see Cortosis, brother. Because Cortosis was a Legends thing.
It was, which is why I was not happy seeing it. I thought that they should have got rid of that because Cortosis existing does not work with all the sequels beyond. Like, that's what I don't like. They now have to explain why there is no Cortosis in another series. Let me just say this because of time's sake. I agree what you're saying, but this is where we disagree. And I want to make it very clear. I am not one that accepts exceptions. I do understand that writers can come in and do something different, and another writer can come and explain why. Okay, what is there? Whether I am someone that requires there to be consistency for established lore. That's it. So I just want to make sure that's the only thing. Otherwise, everything that you like, I actually like. I actually wish they had it. I just wish that was established lore, but it's just not.
Right. No, I mean, I feel you. I mean, but like, you know, that's kind of the whole. I mean, granted, this is a whole other pocket of that universe, but like the whole issue with Jango Fett, he was a Mandalorian. He was a Mandalorian in the prequels. The Clone Wars comes, and they was like, on second thought, he's not a Mandalorian. He stole somebody's armor. Then in the Mandalorian show, they was like, hey, actually, my daddy never stole it. He was actually foundling of the Mandalorian, that he inherited the armor, and so now technically we're Mandalorians again. You know what I'm saying? Like that's kind of my thing. It's like, yeah, is it weird that there were 3 different explanations on them being on Jango being a Mandalorian? Yeah, but like I said, all it takes is for another writer down the line to fix it. Because you know how many people for years was mad that the Clone Wars did that. That they made Jango not be a Mandalorian, and then all it took was one line in the Mandalorian show to be like, boom, he's a Mandalorian again. And they did what I said they did. They did the best of both worlds. Yeah, he wasn't genetically a Mandalorian, but they made him a foundling, and boom, he's a Mandalorian. They married both of those ideas together.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm saying. That's all that has to exist for the bleeding thing. And then with cortosis being around, literally all they got to say is it's hard to make cortosis and it's hard to find. That's all they got to say. Like, you know, there's only a few places to get it. But
I would say real quick on this before we adjourn is, okay, I won't argue we're wrapping up. I can't say my points, but I will ask this because the 3D version of Clone Wars, you said you weren't the biggest fan of. Have you seen the end of it with a 3D Clone Wars series with Ahsoka?
I watched a clip of her when Order 66 happened. I didn't see the very end. No, I didn't.
Are you a fan of Ahsoka?
The show?
Oh, sorry, not the show. I'm sorry. Rosario Dawson did a good job. Not saying that, but the character Ahsoka.
I remember when I was a kid, like when I first watched the 08 movie, I kind of wasn't, because that was like kind of what you were saying with the whole retcon thing. I was kind of like, bruh, if she was his Padawan, where was she at? Because, like, was she just hiding in the corner? Like, where's she been? You know what I'm saying? They ain't saying the word Ahsoka once in Revenge of the Sith. However, I think, and now granted, I never finished the show. Like, I'll be honest, I never finished the show. But I think they did a good enough job of establishing that she was her own character that existed, but you just don't see her in the movies. You know what I'm saying? I think they did a decent enough job. Also, too, I think one of the things we got to realize as Star Wars fans, it takes place in a galaxy. The galaxy is mad big. She could have been anywhere.
And
you know what
far
I'm
away.
saying? That too. You know what I'm saying? That's like when people talk about like the Jedis being a lot. Like I've seen people complain about the amount of Jedis we see that survived Order 66. Bro, there was 10,000 of them boys. We seen about 60 of them. Like we ain't even seen half. Like, so, you know, they could have been anywhere throughout the galaxy. So yeah, no, when it comes to Ahsoka, I'm not really like mad about her existence anymore. Also, yeah, Rosario Dawson, like I'm happy that it led to the live action show and stuff. So yeah, no, I'm not mad about that character.
That's awesome. And I would just say to wrap it up is that this ties into the part earlier that if you have conflicts, you know, you can actually go ahead and add some different things. Ahsoka's existence is a retcon. Sorry, is a continuity issue. And so just to your point earlier, but I actually have no issue with her, even though I just established that I'm someone that likes consistency and lore.
Right.
That's because in the Clone Wars series, they handle it very well. Because you said decent, but I would actually go further and say that was the best explanation of why she doesn't exist I've ever seen. Because there is no contradiction. They actually feed it directly into the scenes from the movie, and they show why she did not actually was not present at all. And it is actually in a way that is actually reasonable. Like it's not actually something that is far-fetched or requires to change the physics of the world. So that's the only difference I have. I am perfectly fine with folks having an explanation that is within reason of the lore and established universe and the physics. What I don't like is if you change the nature of the Force or you make any adjustments to physics or reality just so you can fix some random writer's work down the road. So that's all I wanted to add. Also, if you watch it, I think you'll like it because actually Ahsoka is my second favorite character after Darth Vader.
Okay, that's what's up. But hey, I just want to say thank you so much for joining us, bro. It was really cool chopping it up with you. You know what I'm saying? It was a dope discussion. You know what I'm saying? We actually agreed on more stuff than I thought we did, so I'm really happy about that. Happy to
he wasn't like the other fans, you know. He's
but yeah, no, this was really dope. Like I wish more. Hey, there we go. I wish more pockets of the fan base could have this discussion, but unfortunately, like people be crazy. So, but hey, SOS Podcast, thank you so much. Every Wednesday, 8 p.m. Eastern. Make sure y'all come with us. Make sure y'all follow my boy here. You got anything to shout out, by the way? You got any shout outs you want to do?
Me? No, I'm good. Thank y'all for having me.
Okay. All right, but hey, cool. We got shout outs. Hit up our sister, her podcast, Raw Recovery Podcast. Hit her up. I think she's on TikTok now too. So hit her up, TikTok, YouTube, Instagram, all that stuff. Hit up our other people's What They Want podcast Friday night. Hit them. Hit our socials. Please share everything. Let everybody know we over here. We ain't just sitting in the corner waiting for y'all to come. Hit us up. Y'all can come on the show too and argue with us. But if y'all have too many good points, we're gonna kick y'all off the show. No, just glad I made it. but it is what it is. But hey, thank y'all so much for joining us. Peace, y'all.
Peace out, everybody.